Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you today. And I want to thank you for being with me. I want to do a part two to our legacy of historical gravity research. And in the first part, we talked about all the technology, the different craft that have been seen by eyewitnesses. We talked about the tubes, pipes, cylinders, the understructure of these vehicles, and what the witnesses are actually telling us. Now, on part two, I'd like to dive into the newspaper clippings and then also talk about what the trade publications are telling us, what's been going on the last 5, 6 decades here. So let's go ahead and start with this slide right here. And this is The Hunt for Zero Point Inside the Classified World of Anti-Gravity Technology by Nick Cook. This is highly recommended, highly recommended. Came out in 2001, watershed book. Now, within this book, very much recommended here. I pulled up a newspaper clipping, Santa Fe, New Mexican Sun, May 11th, 2003, the holy grail of the technological age. And so in this presentation and within this book, it was absolutely the Rosetta Stone for cracking the research into basically cracking the gravity barrier. It was this book that really kind of got a lot of this research started. Now, how did Nick Cook get a heads up on all this? What information was he given? Well, if you read this book, and I've got the chat open here, so I'm so glad to be with everybody. In this book, he talks about how one of his coworkers laid an interesting article that came from this publication, Young Men. And within this publication, there was an article called The G Engines Are Coming. This is Young Men, November 1956. And it's this article that really broke this whole thing open because it named the contractors, it named the universities that were working on cracking the gravity barrier, it gave contractors dates, locations. It really was a watershed moment. And it's good to have an original copy of this entire publication here. So I'm going to dive into this. And they give you this illustration to kind of start out this article, that the historical legacy of gravity research, the G engines are coming, Young Men, November 1956. That's the reference for all this. And then this is our full color rendering based on the periodical black and white illustration, just to give you. Now, this is interesting because if you look closely at the configuration of this craft, it kind of looks like a refined version of the March 23rd, 1966 Eddie Laxon case. So it's kind of got that same thing, but a much more modern version here. All right, let's go to the next one. So here's what the newspaper clippings talk about within that periodical publication article. Amarillo Daily News, November 26, 1955. And so when we go through these, you're going to notice that it's this mid-1950s time frame where all this talk about gravity research, atomic-powered aircraft, atomic-powered spacecraft, this all comes into view here. And now it says, aircraft industry firms now participating or actively interested in gravity include Convair of San Diego, Bell Aircraft of Buffalo, New York, Lear Incorporated of Santa Monica, Clark Electronics of Palm Springs, and Sperry Gyroscope of Great Neck, Long Island. So just a very small cross-section of contractors that were working on this gravity barrier here. Let's continue on. And this is going to take a little bit more reading here because I absolutely have to stay with the reference work. So Amarillo Daily News, November 26, 1955. Centers where pure research on gravity now is in progress in some form include the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton, New Jersey, and also Princeton University, the University of Indiana School of Advanced Mathematical Studies, and the Purdue University of Research Foundation. So not only do we have defense contractors working hard to crack the gravity barrier, but we also have these universities trying to crack the gravity barrier. Now you factor in the billions of dollars of classified funding over the last 5, 6, 7 decades, and this is starting to become revealing now. We're unveiling what they've been doing here. Let's continue on. Amarillo Daily News, November 26, 1955. Science launches search for gravity's priceless secret. Search on for secret of gravity. Changes far beyond atom are the prize. The initial steps of an almost incredible program to solve the secret of gravity and universal gravitation are being taken today in many of America's top scientific laboratories and research centers. A number of major long established companies in the United States aircraft and electronics industries are also involved in gravity research. Scientists in general bracket gravity with life itself as the greatest unsolved mystery in the universe. Ooh, the wording on this is incredible. Talking about the greatest unsolved mystery in the universe, something that far surpasses the atomic bomb program. Now we're seeing what's going on here. Okay, let's continue here. New York Times, February 7th, 1957. Gravity studied as power source. Scientific research seeking control of force disclosed at engineer meeting. Now, it says Jesse Vernon Honeycutt, a director and vice president of the Bethlehem Steel Company, declared, quote, should the mystery be solved, it would bring about a greater revolution in power, transportation, and many other fields than the discovery of atomic power. These quotes are important when you look at the whole picture here. For example, solving the mystery of gravitational force would be of tremendous import in the field of aircraft design, where the problem of fighting gravity's effect has always been basic. Okay. So again, they're talking about a revolution in power, transportation, many other fields, aeronautics. This is sounding a lot like what Gordon Cooper had mentioned before he passed away. And he said that we're 100 years behind where we should be right now because he knew about what was going on here. All right, next one, Amarillo Daily News, November 30th, 1955. And I'm seeing everyone in the chat here. Experiments seek means to fly planes outside gravity. Industry gets busy on new space dream. The current interest in America's aircraft and electronic industries is in finding out whether gravity can be controlled or canceled out. Isn't that interesting? Is not confined to imaginative young graduates of engineering and scientific schools. Aviation as we know it is on the threshold of amazing new concepts. The United States aircraft industry already is working with nuclear fuels and equipment to cancel out gravity instead of fighting it. Lawrence D. Bell, Bell Aircraft Corporation. That's interesting. Interavia, number 1, 1952. Air Force atomic engine contract awarded to Pratt & Whitney. So now we got atomic energy going on, atomic rockets. We have that we're talking about here. Let's continue on here. Let's see. Spaceship marvel seen if science can outwit gravity. Great speeds held likely without jolt. That's interesting. Amarillo Daily News, November 29th, 1955. Many in America's aircraft and electronic industries are excited over the possibility of using its magnetic and gravitational fields as a medium of support for amazing flying vehicles. I wonder what that could be, which will not depend on the air for lift. Spaceships capable of accelerating in a few seconds to speeds many thousands of miles an hour and making sudden changes of course at these speeds without subjecting their passengers to the so-called G-forces caused by gravity's pull are also envisioned. Ooh, think about what they're saying here. Talking about accelerating to many thousands of miles per hour, make a 90-degree left-hand turn, and the pilots feel no G's. This is exactly what witnesses have told us for decades now. This erratic maneuver, this right-angle turns, no G's. This is what the article is talking about. It's linking up. We're seeing the parallels here. Next one. I love this one. Amarillo Daily News, November 9th, 1957. The jet age is already obsolete. You old men, 25 or 30 years, still plodding along in the jet age, wake up. The jet propulsion is obsolete. The Sputnik will shortly appear as crude as the wax wings of Icarus. I love the wording. You can't beat the wording here. All right, let's go to the quotes. We are entering the age of anti-gravity space travel. Spherical craft made weightless and propelled by anti-gravity engines may soon attain almost the speed of light, 600 million miles per hour. This is not a dream. Since 1953, the Canadian government has been working on Project Magnet. At least 14 universities and other research centers are trying to crack the gravity barrier. Teams of researchers and engineers from 4 major American aircraft companies have anti-gravity designs and data on their drawing boards, proving that whatever goes up does not necessarily have to come down. I love it. I love it. Let's talk about people in the chat here. Crypto Alchemist, Gigi Abby Lynn, Tim Freestone. Thanks for joining. Great. Let's continue on here. Council Bluffs, 112755. Dan, if you're in the chat, good to be with you, brother. Conquest of gravity aim of top scientists in U.S. One almost fantastic possibility is that if gravity can be understood and scientifically and negated or neutralized in some relatively inexpensive manner, it will be possible to build aircraft, Earth satellites, and even spaceships that will move swiftly into outer space without strain beyond the pull of Earth's gravity. They would not have to wrench themselves away through the brute force of powerful rockets and through expenditure of expensive chemical fuels. It's the wording that is so key here. Words mean so much. They're talking about doing away with solid rockets, liquid rockets. Here's my question. Did the Challenger astronauts know about all these studies that were going on? Did Krista McAuliffe, was she briefed on this? I'm going to talk about this in another presentation. I'm going to go into Challenger big time. Were they briefed before they climbed in on January 28th, 1986? Were they told about the technology in Black World programs, about cracking the gravity barrier in other universities? They weren't told about this. Let's go on here. All right, now we want to talk about what the defense contractors are saying. So now we're in this 62 time frame. I wonder what the defense contractors are telling us here. So this is Ryan Reporter, and this is February 1962. Take a look at what they're doing here. Interesting. Within this publication, it's like a trade publication. It's only about 8 pages, 10 pages in length. Electricity for space exploration, within this Ryan Reporter here. And then they give you this. Isn't this interesting? Illustration of an aerospace vehicle which incorporates an aeroelectric propulsion system features circular disc configuration. That's interesting. Now, if you read this 3-page article within this publication, they are absolutely not talking about solid rockets here. Okay, within this publication, I've got a quote. It says, within the next 10 years, electric propulsion will play a leading role in making extensive spaceships possible. So not only do we have the universities working on it, we've got the defense contractors working on it. And now you can see that even in their own publications, they're leading us into the direction of these circular disc-shaped craft that have no solid rocket boosters. So we're heading in the right direction here. All right, let's go to the next one. Miami Herald, December 2nd, 1955. Engineers aiming to flout gravity. Elimination of interference from transspatial pull is goal. Okay, let's go on. The Wright brothers proved that man does not have to be earthbound. Our next step will be to prove that we can operate outside the Earth's atmosphere. And the third will be to operate outside the gravity of the Earth. Lawrence D. Bell, inventor of the Bell X-1 rocket plane. I firmly believe that before long, man will acquire the ability to build an electromagnetic counter-gravity mechanism that works. Much the same line of reasoning that enabled scientists to split up atomic structures also will enable them to learn the nature of gravitational attraction and ways to counter it. Grover Loaning, first graduate of aeronautics of an American university aircraft design and builder. So again, these newspaper clippings are telling us what they're doing here. So now look at some of these comics here within these newspaper articles. I think it's important. Maybe we're taking this too seriously. Grab my hand, 500 pounds. So, they're talking about controlling gravity here. Let's go on. Solar Marshall, awesome show, bro. Thank you. It's good to be with you. All right, come on, gravity. Let me harness you. Okay, so you see they're trying to crack the gravity barrier. They're trying to harness it. This is like something big. something they want to do here. Electricity was once a mystery, but we solved it. Oh, interesting. Okay, let's go on. The four technological barriers. All right, so first one, electricity barrier solved, 1752 to 1879. Powered flight barrier solved, December 17th, 1903. That was Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, the Wright brothers. Rocketry barrier solved, 1926. Robert Goddard, liquid rockets, okay? Atomic barrier, 1945. Trinity, atomic, first atomic experiment explosion in 1945. So we got that one solved. And then the last one might be the most important one. The last one they wanted to crack was the gravity barrier. Dr. Greer will tell us that the gravity barrier was broken October 1954. Now, this is the latest date for this. So we got to give credit for Dr. Greer for coming up with this date through the historical legacy. Want to highlight his reach there. October 54, gravity barrier cracked. We can probably move back the clock a little bit further back. If you look at what Nikola Tesla was doing in the mid 1870s, he was talking about an electric torpedo that he was developing. So we can probably push that back. But a very good date is October 1954. Let's continue. Miami Herald, December 1st, 1955. Future planes may defy gravity and airlift and space travel. Okay. Scientists foresee speeds in thousands of miles per hour. Electromagnetism would neutralize pull of course shift. Interesting. Okay. Scientists regard Earth today as a giant magnet. Many in America's aircraft and electronic industries are excited over the possibility of using its magnetic and gravitational fields as a medium of support for amazing flying vehicles. There's that term again, which will not depend on air for lift. Wow. Okay. Spaceships capable of accelerating in a few seconds to speeds many thousands of miles per hour and making sudden changes of course at these speeds without subjecting their passengers to the so-called G-forces caused by gravity's pull are also envisioned. These concepts are part of a new program to solve the secret of gravity and universal gravitation already in progress in many top scientific laboratories and long-established firms in the nation. So which way is up? Okay, yeah, if you're in space and you can control gravity, then there is no up, right? You can make these 90-degree angle turns and the pilots feel no G's. So you can mimic the form, fit, and function of what people are claiming as extraterrestrial vehicles when it's our own deep black programs. That's what they don't want to tell. They want to paint all of their classified test flights with the UFO brush. That's what's been going on here for at least 60 years. Okay, so John Lear on the left, William Lear on the right. John's father was definitely involved in this gravity research. How do we prove it? How do we prove it? All right. Valley Times, October 28th, 1959. William P. Lear, inventor and chairman of the board of Lear Incorporated, one of the nation's largest electronics firms specializing in aviation, for months has been going over new developments and theories relating to gravity with his chief scientists and engineers. He is convinced that it will be possible to create artificial electrogravitational fields whose polarity can be controlled to cancel out gravity. Let's continue on here. Tim Freestone, sounds right. Dave Gonzalez, great show already. Thanks a lot. Thumbs up. All the mass materials and human beings within these fields will be part of them. Okay, this is it right here. They will be adjustable so as to increase or decrease the weight of any object in its surroundings. They won't be affected by the Earth's gravity or any celestial body. This means that any person that was in an anti-gravitational airplane or spaceship that carried along its own gravitational field, no matter how fast you accelerated or changed course, your body wouldn't any more feel it than it now feels the speed of the Earth. Okay, so in a nutshell, what he's saying here, and this is John Lear's father, William Lear, is that if you're encapsulated within this gravitational field, you're not going to be susceptible to these G forces. So if you're in this F-16 and you make a 9G left turn, you're going to have G-induced blackout. 10, 11, 12 Gs, you're done for. But if you're in one of these craft that encapsulate this gravitational field within the craft itself, you're not going to feel any Gs. This is exactly what the witnesses are telling us here. Valley Times, October 28th, 1959. Okay. Lear is convinced that it would be possible to create electrogravitational fields whose polarity can be controlled to cancel out gravity. He says all the mass materials and human beings within these fields will be part of them. They will be adjustable. We talked about this here. This is the one we just talked about. So let's continue on here. Valley Times, October 28th, 1959. If a spaceship is capable of creating its own gravitational field, and if this is controllable, the ship will accelerate as long as the field is there. The acceleration will depend entirely on the strength of the field. With gravitational or G field propulsion, a spaceship could be at rest one moment and be traveling at near the speed of light the next instant, and the occupants of the vehicle would be unaware they had moved. Oh boy, you can't beat this wording here. And these are the newspaper clippings. So you've got this absolutely dead standstill, and then boom, off a spark on a grinding wheel, and you're accelerating at thousands of miles an hour. And they're working on it. And the newspaper clippings are telling us that they're already doing this. It's a done deal. It's already been done. Miami Herald, November 30th, 1955. Scientists begin work to break gravity barrier. Okay, so let's continue. Scientists taking first steps in assault on gravity barrier. I hope you're kind of getting the picture here after about a dozen and a half of these articles. They're telling us contractors, defense contractors, universities, black budget funding, trying to crack this gravity barrier. Let's continue. The Post Crescent, December 12th, 1955. Air transportation standing on threshold of new concept. America someday may be able to explore outside forces of gravity. Let's continue. What do they say? The current interest in America's aircraft and electronics industries in finding out whether gravity can be controlled or canceled out is not confined to imaginative young graduates of engineers and scientific schools. Some of the two industries' most experienced and highly regarded leaders today are engaged in theoretical research relating to gravity and universal gravitation. Their basic aim is eventually to build hardware in the shape of planes, Earth satellites, and spaceships, which can go where we want and do what we want without interference from gravity's mysterious transspatial pull. So, to sum up here, newspaper clippings, defense contractors, black budget funding, atomic powered spacecraft, atomic powered rockets, aircraft that have their own gravitational field integrated within the craft itself so that the occupants don't feel any G's, allowing these pilots to go thousands of miles an hour in a straight line, make a 90-degree right-hand turn, and the pilots feel no G's. This is exactly what they've been doing the last 60 years. We've already proven it with the newspaper clippings. And in part one, we talked about all the craft that have been seen. So when you put these two parts together, now we see the picture coming into view that they have cracked the gravity barrier. They've been using our tax dollar funds to fund these programs. And it's now important to maintain an important part of our national history by getting these classified programs out into the public domain. And I also want to say that please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your attention tonight. And next week, I'm going to do that deep dive into the Challenger explosion, January 28th, 1986. I think we owe it to our Challenger astronauts to really go into what went on. We're going to go into the newspaper clippings. I'm going to show you some things that I don't think have been seen before. But thank you so much for your attention. We'll do a final pass here. 80s Dave, thank you. Jock of Ages, thank you. I'm Cole, Cover Up, thank you. Timmy, thank you. I want to thank everyone for being on here. Michael M. Sensi, thank you. Max Q Models, thank you. Terrestrial Material, Robert Morgan, thanks for being with us. Luke Shanigan, shout out. Everybody, thanks for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next segment next week. Thanks a lot.